You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Welcome to the past and the curious. Important animals in history. Oh yeah, it's true. You've made it to a new installment of Important Animals in History. The fourth, in fact. Now, if you don't know, this is a special series from the Past and the Curious history podcast for kids and families. It's focusing on individual animals from the past. I am Mick Sullivan, and this is something I've been offering in between regular episodes as I work on my upcoming book about animals in history. So when that Kickstarter launches later this year, maybe you'll want to help support it. I thought a major publisher would want to publish it. Was I right? I was worse than right. I was wrong. So I'm going to do it myself, hopefully with your help. Stay tuned. Anyway, today on this episode, you're going to meet three interesting animals. First, we have Emily, the escaping cow. Second, you're going to meet Geronimo, the parachuting beaver. And last but not least, we have the Rostocker Pfeilstorch, one of 25 or so arrow storks, which we covered very early on in the Past and the Curious, but we've given a new treatment. So I hope you enjoy. Cows are not known well for their high jumping ability, nor their high speeds for that matter, but when it mattered most, a cow named Emily leapt over a tall fence and then outran the flabbergasted workers on lunch break at a Massachusetts slaughterhouse. Once she had tasted freedom, there was no hope for Hamburger. Emily moved like a shadow in the shade, leaving pursuers scratching their heads and stomping their feet. Bested by a cow. For weeks following her great escape in 1995, newspapers, television, and radio reports kept people on the edge of their seats with around-the-clock cow coverage.
Where's Emily today?
The excited community found themselves pulling for Emily.
It's Cow Watch 95. Where will she be tomorrow?
She was an outlaw hero on the run, like a Robin Hood who moos, or like Emily the Kid. No, I got it. Countess Everdeen. Emily was 3 years old when she made her bolt for freedom, but it was in November in New England. This is a tough season to survive, especially for a cow who had only lived a typical farm life. A cow her size would need to find about 40 pounds of food a day in order to make it through such a harsh winter. And with no farm troughs in sight, Emily had to fend for herself while dodging police and animal control officers. Many caught little more than a glimpse. But delighted people found her hoofprints in the mud and her cow patties on their lawns. Clearly, she was getting enough to eat. Emily had taken a lesson from the deer around her in the woods. She couldn't move as fast as they could, but somehow managed to stick with them for days at a time. People would see her grazing with a herd before she slipped back into the forest. For nearly 2 months, this cow was on the lam. Tight-lipped witnesses later said she slipped into Boston near the starting line of the Boston Marathon. Of course, no one was going to turn her in at this point. Everyone was on Team Emily, waiting to see how long she could live free. Deciding that she had done enough running, she retreated from the marathon starting line and headed back to the woods. And just before Christmas of 1995, a woman named Meg Randa made contact with Emily. It took a while for the cow to trust the woman, but eventually the cow followed her to a safe place. Randa's family ran a sanctuary called the Peace Abbey, which brought together ideas and people of many faiths. Since they cared deeply about justice and peace and human and animal rights, the family figured that this was the best possible place for Emily to live. So they officially bought her from the slaughterhouse for $1. And for the rest of her life, Peace Abbey was Emily's very comfortable home. And thanks to her big jump and famous time spent in freedom, she inspired visitors from around the world. Emily was obviously very special to many. She was such a celebrity, in fact, that she even appeared in People magazine. You know, the human-centric publication. People made an exception to include a cow. Emily was even the bridesmaid at 2 human weddings. At one, she ate the bride's bouquet, however. Everyone understood, though. Winter was right around the corner, and a cow's got to get ready for the cold. It's a tale as old as time. One group moves to a new land, which leads to problems with the group who was already there. And in this case, we're talking about people and beavers. I'll give you one guess about which group was there first.
Psst. It was the group that likes knocking down trees with their teeth. And I don't know any people that like to do that.
I'll also give you one guess about who had to leave.
Yeah, it's the tree chewers again.
Hey, at least the local officials gave them a dramatic lift and a drop to their new home.
Yes, it's Operation Beaver Drop.
That's right, Operation Beaver Drop. In the 1940s, people were moving into new homes outside of Boise, Idaho. Meanwhile, the large beaver population just kept doing beavery things like knocking down trees and damming waterways. Homeowners raised such a stink about beaver-related property damage that officials finally had to do something. And since the beavers weren't the ones paying taxes, it was decided that they had to go. It's unfair, I know. Officials from the Department of Fish and Game found a nice place elsewhere in the state, with rivers and mountains and streams and enough trees to wear out 1,000 mouths full of thousands of teeth. The land truly was a paradise for tree chompers. The only problem was getting the critters from one place to the other. The land and water routes were too challenging to move dozens of animals safely. So finally, someone suggested that a stockpile of old army parachutes might help them solve the relocation problem. Before dropping a living creature from an airplane, people had to test this crazy airborne beaver idea for safety. So Operation Beaver Drop began with a few weight-tested dummies, and custom spring-loaded crates were designed to attach to the parachutes and hold the beavers safely until they landed back on Earth. Upon impact, the crates were designed to pop open so the beaver could hop out and start a new life in a new land, far away from the people who forced them out in the first place. After a few successful dummy drops, they were ready for the next step of the mission, a live drop. And this was just the kind of mission a beaver like Geronimo could sink his teeth into. As Geronimo, the beaver, would soon prove, he was a flat-tailed pioneer on the vanguard of semi-aquatic airborne moments in mammalian migration. Safely nestled into his crate, Geronimo's plane made it to cruising altitude and was dropped by his human crew. The time in free fall was short before Geronimo's parachute deployed, which allowed him to gracefully float to Earth like a large, toothy dandelion seed. The mechanism in his crate worked like a charm, and it popped open when he landed, and off he scampered, happy, healthy, and eager to fell some trees. Geronimo's success meant he was just the tip of the iceberg. Dozens and dozens of beaver bombs rained down from the skies above Idaho in the days that followed. When all of the fabric had settled, 76 beavers had parachuted their way to a new life in the Idaho wilderness. Mission accomplished. Operation Beaver Drop was a victory for all involved. And still today, the effects are very easy to see, especially from space. You see, today the land that has been settled by Geronimo and his paratrooper beaver buddies is lush, rich, and green, thanks to the fact that beavers expand wetlands wherever they go. Their new home has been untouched by wildfires over the years. Those people who chased them off might regret it now. Now, I'd like to have a quick pause. How long? How quick? Oh, well, 30 seconds. Because before we get back to the animals, it's time for You Have 30 Seconds. This month's guest for You Have 30 Seconds comes to us from the Philippines with a really fascinating person from history, Nobel Prize winner.
Hello, Mick. This is Tara Lisa Schneider. I live in the Philippines, and today I'm going to talk about Lise Meitner. Lise Meitner was a physicist. She provided the explanation how the nucleus of atoms split. After she fled Nazi Germany in 1938, her longtime friend and collaborator Otto Hahn published the paper and took sole credit, winning the Nobel Prize in 1944. Her role was overlooked for decades.
Wow, I did not know who Lise Meitner was. I've never heard of that person. Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for sharing it with everyone out there listening. If anyone out there has a You Have 30 Seconds, you just gotta record yourself with a smartphone, iPad, or something like that, and you gotta do it in 30 seconds. Great work! Thank you so much! At one point in time, Germany had so many storks flying around with arrows and spears stuck through their bodies that people came up with a name for the strange phenomenon. Of the 25 or so Pfeilstorches that we know about, the Rostocker Pfeilstorch is certainly the most famous. By the way, Pfeilstorch is German for arrow stork. And while carrying a spear protruding from its body, the Rostocker Pfeilstorch, this poor punctured stork, managed to deliver the key to a perplexing mystery of the time. For centuries, people had wondered about a lot of things, like where do birds go in the winter? Each spring and summer, the land and the skies were rich with wings and feathers and beaks. But once the leaves began to fall and the cold winter returned, the nesting, feeding, and the flittering about was just a memory. And some wondered, did birds just disappear? Today, we understand about bird migration, but in the past, to even the most observant people, the answers to mysterious bird disappearances weren't so clear. People came up with all sorts of theories. One person speculated that birds actually blossomed on trees, like flowers in the springtime. Another theorized that when the weather changed and the bird disappeared, they actually flew into lakes and rivers where they swam to the bottom and buried themselves in the mud. Someone else suggested that birds transformed into other creatures, like mice, for the winter. And when spring came, they transformed back and returned to their regularly scheduled bird lives? Guess so. But a man named Charles Morton takes the cake. In the 1680s, he wrote a paper with an otherworldly idea of what became of birds. The title of his essay is as follows:
An essay toward the probable solution of this question: whence come the stork and the turtle dove and the crane and the swallow, when they know and observe the appointed time of their coming?
It was a clunky title, for sure, but Charles was mostly correct in deducing why the birds disappeared. They were naturally reacting to the shorter days, the less abundant food, and the cold temperatures of the seasons. It was in their nature to leave, but where did they go? And that's where he got it wrong. Charles suggested that birds left Earth for the moon. You see, Morton imagined that these birds would embark on a 60-day journey, flying a distance of 179,712 miles to the moon. A flight like this would require an average speed of about 125 miles an hour. Maybe that would be possible with the lack of gravity and wind resistance in space, but probably not. Also worth pointing out, there's not a lot of bird food out in space. And then in 1822, the Rostocker Pfeilstorch was found in Germany, and it immediately poked his moon theory full of holes. You see, the stork had been poked with some holes of its own, and the spear that did the poking was still lodged in the body of the bird. The living bird. But the spear wasn't German. It wasn't even from anywhere nearby in Europe. It was from part of Africa, thousands of miles to the south and well below the equator. A hunter there had pierced the stork, but the wound was not fatal. So when the seasons changed, this bird was still able to continue his migratory flight patterns. It just learned to live with a spear stuck through its body. And I know, it's gruesome, yes. But if not for the spear, there would have been no way to know where this bird had been flying before flying over German airspace. For all they knew, it could have flown in from Spain, or the bottom of the river, or perhaps the moon. This African spear was clear evidence that the bird had traveled great distances while still remaining here on planet Earth. Within the same century, scientists started using things such as aluminum bands wrapped around a bird's leg. This allowed them to begin to understand the patterns in which birds migrate. The bands were imprinted with information to identify the bird and its prior location, allowing it, hopefully, to be tracked over time. Though still in use, digital chips and other technological devices are increasingly common, making gathering information about birds and other animals much easier. We're still learning new things about animals every day, but it's safe to say that we can close the case on moon migration. Cha-cha-cha! All right, thank you for listening to the 4th installment of Important Animals from History, a production of The Past and the Curious. I am Mick Sullivan, as always. There's a book in the future. I hope you will support it, so stay tuned on that. I'll be back with a new episode shortly. Working real hard, but boy, oh boy, summer schedules are difficult to manage. At any rate, thank you for listening. Please tell somebody about it if you enjoy the show. I'll be talking to you soon. This is Mick Sullivan, signing off.